Mercy is the shining beacon of hope of the Overwatch cast, at least from an aesthetic standpoint. But where did Mercy start and how did she get to where she is now? Seeing as a lot of players have joined Overwatch far past its original release, I thought it would be fun to go through the history of Mercy and talk about all the different iterations that she went through. But before we do that, we need to lay down the groundwork to make sure this video does not end up unnecessarily confusing. As much as most of you probably know me for my discussion type content, this is not one such video. It's more about trivia. I won't get in depth about all the changes themselves more than me just telling you that they happened. Regardless of that, I went through the effort of checking each and every patch note I could find since the game's launch. But here's a disclaimer. I've excluded console specific patches for the sake of simplicity. I have also excluded roster-wide changes that apply to more heroes than just Mercy. That's to say that so long that the patch notes addressed Mercy in particular, I have added it. Anything else did not make the cut. And I made some interesting findings while doing so. Mercy, being one of the heroes that Overwatch launched with, has been changed in 29 out of 78 separate patches. In the process, 9 patches have significantly altered her abilities without being part of bug fixes. While 34 bugs have been fixed, of which 20 were minor bug fixes with no gameplay relevance like voice languages and the like, 14 bugs did have a significant impact on gameplay. 33 separate changes were made to Mercy as part of either major bug fixes or straight up hero changes that had major gameplay relevance. Funnily enough, right about half of them were bug fixes, while the other half were hero changes. While that may sound like a lot, let's put that into perspective. Sombra's abilities have been significantly altered in 6 patches while only launching in November of 2016. Ana had 14 separate changes made to her abilities after launching in July of 2016, which was not too far away from launch. And Doomfist had 38 gameplay relevant bugs fixed ever since his launch in July of 2017. What's worth noting here too is that Mercy has received 7 major buffs that don't include ability reworks and 1 significant nerf before Valkyrie was introduced, which came with a buff at the same time. 7 major nerfs were made solely surrounding Valkyrie as that ability was hopelessly overtuned at launch, and 1 significant nerf was made after Valkyrie was introduced without being Valkyrie related. So, long story short here is that Mercy is 7 in 9 for buffs versus nerfs. While the vast majority of her nerfs were made to bring an ability back in line that was overtuned at launch. 9 in 9 if you include buffs to Valkyrie that were made to counteract nerfs but were later removed. Fun fact, in early builds of Overwatch, Mercy's ultimate ability was tested to be a healing tether that split among your teammates, much in the way that Valkyrie works today. So Resurrection was not always part of Mercy's core design, though it is worth noting that in early pitches that the developers made to get the concept approved in the first place, Mercy, back then known as Guardian since they were treating characters as classes rather than heroes in the earliest concept stages, did have Resurrection added in her character sheet. That idea likely stemmed from the Resurrection mechanic in World of Warcraft that is a staple of any healing class, seen as part of the development team, including Jeff Kaplan, have been involved with the development of WoW in the past as well. The first patch to ever affect Mercy was in early July of 2016, fixing a bug that caused her beam to disconnect from its target if the player quickly switched between damage and healing while facing away from the target. The first major change came barely 2 weeks after. Since hero stacking was allowed at the time, they had to make sure that damage increasing abilities no longer stack. Her ultimate, which was a mass resurrection at the time, was also nerfed to require 30% more charge. However, they did buff it at the same time by making it so she is not completely stationary anymore while casting it and resetting her Guardian Angel instantly upon use. A developer note reads, Mercy's ultimate is one of the most powerful abilities in the game. However, players would often fly into the fray and die while using it. With this update, Resurrect will now take a bit longer to charge, but Mercy will be a lot safer when activating the ability in middle of combat. September 1st of 2016, Mercy's healing per second has been increased by 20% in an attempt to keep her competitive with the most recent addition to the support roster, Ana, who featured yet unrivaled levels of burst healing at the time. They also made it so that allies who have been rezzed can take action faster than before. In November of 2016, Mercy has received a major buff that activated her passive regeneration after 1 second when avoiding damage rather than 3. And later in that same month, they fixed a bug that allowed her to gain ultimate charge from damage boosting players that weren't damaging anyone. Next to a minor skin related bug, January of 2017 has fixed a major bug that allowed her to resurrect players that had fallen off of the map. February is where we see some major changes. Mercy was made invulnerable when using Resurrection along with the allies that she rezzed. A developer comment explains the decision. Mercy's Resurrect has always been very powerful, but it often forces her to sacrifice herself to use it well. There have been changes in the past that attempted to help her in this area, but haven't done enough to solve it. This change means that once she uses the ability, she will always survive long enough to be with her team again. While the Guardian Angel and Beam sensitivity options were also a nice added bonus to that patch, the change to Resurrection started an era of Mercy dominance that made it right about impossible to play around this ability at the time. The meta started to play around the idea of recklessly charging onto the objective in an attempt to force the enemy res out as quickly as possible while holding onto your own. Since Mercy was so difficult to hit with not only her slim hitbox, but also added invulnerability that was tough to deal with given the shoddy netcode we played with, teams were not even trying to invest resources into killing the high mobility healer, and rather just attempted to force res out first. And the players of that time will remember the first team to res usually lost. The developers didn't really do anything about that for a very long time. Mercy players were yelled at when dying early as having your entire team revived was your win condition, and other players expressed their dislike for a meta surrounding a hero that was not only difficult to kill on its own merit, but also had added invulnerability to an ultimate that was, according to their own words, one of the most powerful abilities in the game. September 19th of 2017, over half a year after the initial change to Rezz, the developers finally came up with a solution. Resurrection was turned into a regular ability on cooldown, but could only affect a single player, and Valkyrie as an ultimate was introduced. The idea was simple. The meta largely focused on hiding your Mercy in a spot that was hard to reach and then get the big res off. Mercy players were not very active in their own role, but still had a massive impact on the game's outcome. To add more interactivity to her kit, Blizzard introduced Valkyrie as a way for Mercy to actually have more choices when pressing Q. She can use her mobility and unlimited ammo to get a quick kill, for example. Alternatively, she could either heal or damage boost her entire team, provided they were sticking close to each other. When originally introduced, Valkyrie was essentially the roided up version of what you know today. It essentially made Mercy a better version of Mercy, making her stronger in literally every aspect. She was extremely fast, had no restrictions to her mobility, healed better, boosted damage better, had her res on cooldown reset, and was invulnerable when reviving. At this point you can see why so many nerfs had to follow. Blizzard was determined that Valkyrie was a good ultimate that made Mercy more interactive, compared to the hide and seek meta that dominated the game before. But because they tried so hard to make her better in every aspect, they ended up overtuning every single aspect of her. October 10th of 2017 fixed the bug that could cause heroes to respawn as a different hero after being resurrected. Yeah, that was a weird one. In addition to that, they fixed the bug that caused Mercy to maintain forward momentum after canceling Guardian Angel mid-flight. If I recall correctly, that was actually a tech developed by Mercy players, which was very reminiscent of bunny hopping, allowing her to fly further than the target she was flying to by maintaining her momentum. As much as it was a popular tech among Mercy players, it seemed like less experienced players would use that tech by accident and uncontrollably fly into the enemy team, which is why this bug was fixed and the ability to maintain momentum after using Guardian Angel was reintroduced in a later patch, and that patch followed a week later, together with some more tweaks to Valkyrie. They tried to reduce the impact of Resurrection in particular. You can see why so many players have a negative perception of that ability when it was such a huge problem in two different iterations of it. But that change was not a traditional nerf. A developer comment reads, Valkyrie no longer resets or reduces Resurrect's cooldown. Instead, it now provides an extra charge, allowing you to revive an ally even if it's still on cooldown. If the bonus charge has not been spent when Valkyrie ends, it will be removed. This method makes Resurrect more flexible when used with Valkyrie. For example, in the past, if you wanted to resurrect two teammates, you had to revive the first target, then activate Valkyrie, causing Resurrect's cooldown to reset, and then revive the other target. With this change, you can now activate Valkyrie and fly in quickly to resurrect both targets instantly. However, this still reduces the overall number of resurrects that Mercy can provide, since Valkyrie no longer reduces its cooldown. Which in short means that they took away another Mercy tech that allowed players to distinguish themselves from other Mercy players with less skill or knowledge. With bunny hopping no longer being a tech but a straight up ability and Valkyrie allowing 2 instant rezzes, the line between experienced and inexperienced Mercy players was getting blurrier and blurrier. And that had already become a problem when the old team rezz made Mercy invulnerable, as an experienced Mercy player would usually manage to get more rezzes off without dying than an inexperienced one. But that obviously didn't make a difference anymore since they added invulnerability. A month later, more changes were looking to combat Mercy's dominance in competitive play, as all the tweaks, nerfs, and changes did not manage to remove her must-pick status. We feel that Mercy's recent rework has been successful, but her resurrect ability still feels too strong and frustrating to play against. Now that it has a cast time, enemies are more able to counter the ability. However, resurrect will cast instantly when Valkyrie is active. This should make her feel powerful when she transforms on a battlefield. While December and January of 2018 only saw a number of minor bug fixes, it was the end of that same month that hit Mercy with their nerf hammer. They drastically cut down on the potency of rezz, they significantly reduced her agility, and the duration of the ability was reduced as well. The developers added the following comment: Mercy's recent resurrect changes have helped in allowing enemies to have more counterplay in dealing with her, but she was able to use resurrect through Valkyrie enough to largely mitigate the impact of the previous changes. Additionally, we're toning back the amount of mobility Valkyrie provides through Guardian Angel and reducing its duration to overall reduce the power of this ability. So after half a year of Mercy dominance using a team-wide resurrection ultimate and another half year of continuous domination through an overtuned Valkyrie, her new ultimate was finally changed to what it should have been at launch. Where some of you might think that her reign of terror over the competitive ladder has ended, you would be very mistaken. While a few compositions were looking to dethrone the angel that, ironically, showed no mercy, she remained in a very strong position. And over many months, all the changes made to Mercy have been mostly of non-gameplay influencing nature, with the very notable exception of the patch that went live on May 3rd to make it so that you can actually CC her out of her rezz. I mean, what the heck, Blizzard? That must have been a bug that happened on some point in time, but likely was not around for too long, as I don't recall this having been a major issue. Very notable bug fixes also occurred on June 26th and July 24th of this year. While the last one was arguably not a bug as much as a gross oversight side of the development team. Season 10 Graph Dragon meta, anyone? And now we finally get to August 9th of 2018. The one nerf to finally remove Mercy's must-pick status. As much as players argued over rezz being the problem, since it has been a massive issue for such a long time in multiple iterations, the real problem at this point was her healing output. Well, in combination with her entire kit. A Mercy pocketed target was very difficult to take out, and Mercy's entire kit added a level of convenience to Overwatch as a competitive experience that removing her from your team was just too much of a downside. But the nerf of her healing beam from 60 to 50 HPS was what finally brought her to her knees. After 1.5 years of complete and utter dominance, Mercy was no longer considered a must-pick hero. Other hero buffs obviously contributed to the change in meta, allowing Ana to be run again, despite the inconvenience of having to watch out for sightlines and enemy barriers. And the last thing changed about Mercy was a bug fix on September 11th that stopped her from getting ultimate charge for damage boosting abilities that were not even damage boostable anymore, since they made it so she can no longer boost ultimates. And that's it for the history of Mercy. Now, admittingly, I had to leave out a lot of small changes that mainly included cosmetic fixes, because I realized how long this video was turning out already while scripting it. And I got all this information off of the Overwatch wiki by painstakingly checking out each and every recorded patch note available. If I happen to miss something, then make sure to let me know down in the comment section below. I'm just human after all myself. If you guys enjoyed this type of content and feel like it will be a nice addition to my channel next to all the discussions, then feel free to sound off about that as well. This is the first time I have done something like this, so I'm very curious to find out what you guys think about it, especially given how long this video is and how long it took to make. But that's enough from me here today as I talk about the history of Mercy in Overwatch. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and maybe share this video with a friend you think would find it interesting. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.